Why your raise never feels like a raise. Two cubicles, same floor, same promotion memo landing in both inboxes on the same Tuesday. Priya opens hers, feels the number, does nothing for 6 weeks. Marcus opens his, and by Friday, there's a new watch band on his wrist. Same company, same title bump, same 11%. And 18 months later, one of them has a savings rate that the other one has a car payment that beat the raise before it ever touched it. Nobody handed either of them a bad decision. That's the part that should be fun. My name's Nick. Today, we're taking apart the reason a raise almost never feels like a raise, why the money seems to vanish exactly as fast as it arrives, and the one mechanical fix that actually works, because it isn't willpower. Start with the number. Researchers call it the marginal propensity to consume. And for most households, it sits somewhere between 70 and 90%. That means for every extra dollar that shows up in a paycheck, 70 to 90 cents gets spent within the year. Not eventually, within the year. You didn't imagine that the raise disappeared. It was mathematically supposed to. And the crueler part is that it doesn't feel like 90 cents at a time. It feels like zero. Then suddenly a slightly better apartment, a slightly nicer dinner rotation, a slightly newer phone, none of which felt like a decision when you made it. Here's Priya and Marcus, 6 months in. Same 11% raise on a base of $91,000, so an extra $830 landing in each paycheck. Marcus's watch band
Within
was
6
months. He's leased a car that's $410 a month more than the one he traded in. Moved into a one-bedroom that's $300 more than his old place, because the raise made the nicer building feel achievable, and started doing the Friday team lunch every week instead of every other week. Another roughly $90 a month he never logs anywhere. Add it up, and he's absorbed $940 of new fixed spending against an $830 raise. He's not overspending the raise. He's overspending past it, using savings that used to go toward his 401k top-up to cover the gap. And he hasn't noticed yet, because none of these felt like one decision. He felt like 5 reasonable ones spread across 5 months. Priya's raise landed in the same account it always did. She didn't move, didn't touch the car, kept the Friday lunches is her automatic transfer to her brokerage account went from $400 to $950 a month, set up the same week the raise hit, before she'd had a chance to see the money land anywhere else first. That's the entire difference between them. And I want you to notice, it isn't a discipline gap, it's a sequencing gap. Marcus saw the money before he redirected it. Priya redirected it before she saw it. This is where the phrase gets its name, and it comes from sociology before it ever showed up in a finance textbook. Expenditure Cascades. The idea, mapped out by economist Robert Frank, is that spending at the top of an income distribution doesn't stay at the top. It shifts the reference point for the tier just below, who adjust their spending to match, which shifts the tier below that, all the way down. Nobody at any level made an person is responding rationally to a frame that got shoved downward by people they've never met. What almost nobody talks about is that the exact same mechanism runs vertically through your own life, year over year. 26-year-old you set a frame for what a decent Friday looks like. 31-year-old you, making 40% more, inherited that frame and is now quietly financing an upgraded version of it, one raise at a time, without ever consciously deciding to raise the bar. And there's a name for the version that happens with something you buy instead of something you earn. Economists borrowed it from a French philosopher who received one beautiful dressing gown as a gift, decided everything else around it suddenly looked shabby by comparison, and replaced it all, eventually going into debt over a robe. The Diderot Effect. The raise runs the same script, except in reverse. The gown didn't need anything, but it made everything nearby doesn't need anything either. Until the calendar shows it's been sitting in your account for 6 weeks, and somehow every part of your life has quietly nominated itself for an upgrade. Zoom out for a second, because this isn't just a story about 2 coworkers. A widely cited internal analysis from a major US bank tracking actual customer accounts found that when someone's income rose, their spending rose by roughly 70 cents on every new dollar within the same year. And the increase wasn't concentrated in necessities. It showed up hardest in dining out, subscriptions, and what the researchers politely labeled discretionary upgrades, which is a clinical way of saying watch bands and one-bedrooms with better light. The pattern held across income brackets, which is the detail that should stop you. This isn't a low-income problem or a high-income, and it shows up whether the raise takes someone from $38,000 to $42,000 or from $200,000 to $220,000. The zeros change. 70% doesn't. Now, the honest complication, because I don't want to make this sound like Marcus is careless and Priya is virtuous. Run the numbers on what's actually happening to their net worth, and it gets uncomfortable fast. Because the gap compounds in a direction that has nothing to do with who's a better person. Priya's extra $550 a month, invested at a 7% return, comes about $95,000 after 10 years. Marcus's extra $940 a month in new fixed costs, if he'd invested it instead, would have become roughly $162,000 over the same decade.
The house down payment, sitting in the gap between a Tuesday morning and a Friday afternoon, in the 6 weeks after a raise landed in 2 different bank accounts. Here's the part that actually explains why this keeps happening to smart, disciplined people who would never call themselves impulsive. Your brain doesn't evaluate spending against your income. It evaluates spending against your recent spending. Behavioral economists call this the reference point, and it resets constantly, almost invisibly, every time your baseline shifts even slightly. The $400 increase in Marcus's rent didn't feel like $400 against his salary. It felt like $60 against the last apartment he almost took.
The purchase decision he made in those 6 months was benchmarked against a slightly inflated anchor instead of against his actual number, which is exactly how $940 of new spending can accumulate from someone who never once felt like they were being reckless. And this is where most videos on lifestyle creep just tell you to budget harder, which is close to useless, because the problem was never visibility. Marcus could see his bank balance every single day. The problem is timing. By the time a raise sits in your account for even one pay cycle, your brain has already started renegotiating your baseline around it. The fix has to happen before that renegotiation starts, not after. So here's the actual mechanism, and it's almost insultingly simple, which is exactly why. Before the first paycheck at the new rate lands, you increase an automatic transfer by an amount equal to the raise, ideally routed somewhere slightly inconvenient to touch. Retirement account, separate brokerage, anything that isn't sitting next to your checking account daily balance. You do this on the same day HR confirms the number, not the day it first shows up in your paycheck. That gap matters more than anything else in this video, because your reference point hasn't updated yet. You are still running on your old baseline, which means the new money never gets evaluated against your spending at all. It goes somewhere before your brain gets a vote. Priya did this by instinct. She didn't read a paper on expenditure cascades. She just moved the number before she let herself see what her checking account looked like. She says the raise didn't feel like anything for the first 2 months. No celebration dinner, no new anything. Then, and this is the part she mentioned that stuck with me, around month 3, she stopped checking prices on the grocery app the way she used to. Not because she had more disposable income sitting around, she'd routed all of it away. Because the $600 she'd already saved by that point had quietly become proof to herself that she could absorb a bad month without forgetting. Security came from the automation, from spending any of the actual raise. Marcus's version of that same psychological need met a completely different way. This is the piece I think explains almost all lifestyle once you see it clearly. A raise doesn't just represent more money. Effort mattered, that the promotion was real, that the last 2 years of showing up early weren't invisible. And spending is a fast, tangible way to convert that evidence into a feeling you can point to. Watch band, the car, the apartment, none of it was really about the item.
It was about needing something external to confirm that the raise actually happened and actually meant something. Automating the transfer denies you that confirmation loop entirely, which is exactly why it feels like nothing happened for the first few months, and exactly why it's the only version of this that survives contact with an actual human brain instead of a spreadsheet. There's a twist buried in this that makes the timing question even more urgent than it sounds, and it's one almost nobody mentions when they talk about raises. Some of that $830 was never fully Marcus's.
That pushes part of your income into a higher marginal bracket, or that phases out a benefit tied to an income threshold, an employer HSA contribution, a subsidized transit pass, a bonus structure with a hard income cap, quietly shrinks the real number before either of them ever saw it land. Priya's automation was calculated off her gross raise, so when the actual net increase came in about 11% lower than expected because of bracket creep, her transfer simply adjusted down the following month, and she never noticed a gap because she'd never built a lifestyle around the bigger number in the first place. Marcus had already committed to fixed costs based on the number on the offer letter, not the number that actually landed, which means part of that $940 in new spending was being financed by money that technically wasn't there yet. This is the part that turns a psychological problem
before the money even fully accounts for, and it's the one that turns a one-time gap into a permanent one. Every raise after the first behaves the same way, compounding against whichever baseline you're currently running. Marcus's next raise, 18 months later, it's evaluated against a monthly budget that's already $940 higher than it needs to be, which means the next expenditure cascade starts from a taller floor. Priya's next raise gets evaluated against a budget that never moved, so the entire new amount is still visible to her the same way the first one was, still eligible for the same instant redirection. This is why two people with genuinely identical career trajectories, identical raises, identical timelines, can be separated by hundreds of thousands of dollars a decade later without either of them ever making one dramatic mistake. The gap
From
is
the
built
same
from
reasonable decision, made at a slightly different moment, 5 or 6 times in a row. There's a third coworker in this office worth mentioning, because he's the one most people think they are. Dave got the same 11% raise, read a personal finance blog post about lifestyle creep the week after, felt appropriately guilty, and told himself he'd start saving more next month, once things settled down. Next month came the month after, then a slow drift, where the raise quietly folded into his existing spending, with no dramatic purchase to point to at all. A watch, a lease, nothing he could circle on a bank statement. A year later, he genuinely couldn't tell you where the extra $830 a month went, because it never went anywhere as a single decision. It went everywhere in $5 and $10 increments, absorbed into a baseline that shifted so gradually.
Is arguably the most common outcome of all three. More common than Marcus's dramatic upgrades, and more common than Priya's clean automation. And he's the hardest one to fix, precisely because there's no single villain purchase to point at. Intending to save more later without a mechanism isn't a plan. It's just Marcus's outcome with better manners and no watch band to blame it on. I want to be fair to Marcus here, because the takeaway isn't that automation makes you virtuous and spending makes you weak. Some of what Marcus bought genuinely mattered to him. The apartment put him 10 minutes from his parents instead of 40. It's real. The honest version of this isn't never upgrade your life when you want. It's decide the upgrade on purpose. The number you chose in advance. It's discovering it retroactively through 6 months of receipts you never added up.
Friday lunches nobody ever sat down and chose. That's the actual distinction that matters. Intentional against accumulating, not spending against saving. If you want a number to actually use this week instead of just nodding along, here it is. Take whatever percentage of your next raise you'd like to feel the benefit of directly. Something like 30% is reasonable for most people. And route the other 70
automatically into savings or investments on the same day the raise is confirmed, before a single new paycheck lands. Not because 70 is a magic number, but because the exact figure matters far less than the timing. Set it up while your baseline is catch up to the new number slowly, and on purpose, if it catches up at all. Instead of your spending front-running the decision by 6 invisible weeks, the way Marcus's did. Put all 3 side by side, and the honest ranking isn't automation, then discipline, then chaos. It's automation, then chaos, then good intentions, in that order. Because Dave's guilt without a mechanism produced almost exactly the same outcome as Marcus's watchmaker, just spread thin enough that he never had a single moment to feel bad about it. Feeling responsible about money and actually redirecting money turn out to be almost entirely unrelated activities. In the entire lifestyle creep industry, budgeting apps, guilt, New Year's resolutions about spending less, is built around the assumption that they're the same thing. Run this forward, and the divergence same timeline, same effort at work, but one of them retires with a number that lets the job become optional a decade earlier than the other, purely from the 6 weeks after each promotion. One of them moved first, one of them didn't. Nobody in this story is lazy. Nobody is reckless. Nobody made a single decision you'd flag if you saw it in isolation. That's what makes it worth paying attention to. The raise was never actually the moment that mattered. The moment that mattered was the one right after it, the one that happened so fast almost nobody notices it happening at all. There's one more thing worth sitting with before you close this out, because it explains why this pattern survives even in people who've read every budgeting book and downloaded every tracking app there is. Tracking spending after the fact with painful clarity exactly how the $940 got spent. But by the time you're looking at the spreadsheet, the apartment lease is signed and the car is financed for 60 months. Awareness arrives after the commitment, which is precisely backwards. The entire value of the automated transfer is that it doesn't require you to notice anything at all. It doesn't compete with your willpower because it happens before your willpower is ever asked to do anything. That's not a small distinction. It's the entire distinction. Every strategy that depends on you noticing in the moment is competing with a brain that's actively working to make the new spending feel invisible, because that's exactly what a shifting reference point does by design. So the next time a number changes on your offer letter, don't wait to see how it feels in your account first. Move before you look. Your future spending will renegotiate itself around whatever's left, the same way it always does. This time, you get to decide what's left, instead of finding out 6 months later, sitting across from a lease you don't remember agreeing to want.